Hello and welcome. You're with us on Business Today. I'm Abha Bakaya. Here are the headlines tonight. Markets log best day in a week ahead of Fed rate decision. Nifty ends near 17,000. IT banks give Sensex a 1,000-point lift. All sectors in the green. Aviation stocks fly high as jet fuel rates hit fresh all-time high. Steepest hike ever by 18% amid Russia-Ukraine conflict. Crude oil prices remain volatile as Brent hovers around the $100 mark. US says no sanctions for India and other countries for buying oil at a discount from Russia. But White House wants nations dealing with Russia not to be on the wrong side of history. Former Fortis healthcare promoter bail request rejected by the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said Shivinder Mohan Singh is a serious flight risk. Millions under lockdown amid worst COVID-19 surge in China. Hong Kong raises alarm bells for India. Experts fear a massive disruption to the global supply chain. Amid continued volatility, investors had some respite as benchmark indices edged higher today. After turning sharply higher in the last hour of trade, markets logged the best day in a week. Sensex and Nifty rose in line with global peers. Sensex printed 1,040 points, ending above 56,800. Nifty closing close to the 17,000 mark after rallying over 300 points. Positive developments on the Russia-Ukraine front helped markets log in healthy gains. Investors were keenly awaiting the outcome of the US Fed policy scheduled later in the day. Experts hope that the Fed will announce a 25 basis points hike in interest rates against earlier expectations of a 50 basis point hike. The buying was broad-based with all sectors in the green. 47 of 50 Nifty stocks closed in the green. Ultratech, Axis, Bajaj Auto, IndusInd Bank, Shree Cement among the gainers today. The India Volatility Index slipped 10%, recording the biggest single-day fall in a month. The US Fed Reserve's two-day meet ends today. Markets expect that the FOMC might bite the bullet and announce a 25 basis point rate hike to address the worst inflation in more than 40 years. This comes as the Fed Reserve is facing a tough job of walking the tightrope between controlling red-hot inflation and supporting growth. If interest rates are hiked, it will be the first rate hike in the US since 2018. How does the Fed rate hike impact India? Well, higher interest rates in the US usually lead to foreign investors pulling their money from emerging markets like India back to the US for safer and more secure returns. Already, foreign institutional investors have sold over 2 lakh crore rupees worth of Indian equity since October. The capital flight will put pressure on the RBI to hike interest rates or lead to rupee depreciation against the dollar. With international oil prices surging to a multi-year high, jet fuel prices also saw a steep hike in prices. The aviation turbine fuel saw an 18% hike, the steepest increase ever. The 6th straight hike this year led to prices soaring past the 1 lakh rupee per kilolitre mark for the first time ever. Jet fuel, which makes up for almost 40% of the running cost of an airline, has this year surged to new highs. Even the aviation stocks soared post the increase in these prices. While Indigo logged in close to 4% gains, SpiceJet also shut shop in the green. But the fuel hike spells trouble for the common man, who will have to bear the brunt of a likely increase in airfares. We have aviation analyst Ameya Joshi joining in to decode the impact of the price hike on the common man. Ameya, well, while the markets might still have reacted coincidentally in a positive manner, it doesn't really spell great news for the airlines either.
Absolutely, it doesn't. You have to look at it in multiple ways and not just the fuel price. A lot of this price is actually dollar denominated for the airlines, mainly those related to leasing costs. And if you see the rupee is also sliding, it's weaker by 5.8% over last March. So when you look at all of this together, the cost of operations for airline are going up significantly, which obviously will have to be passed on to the consumers. And even while we are seeing cases of revenge tourism, the moment COVID cases go down and we are out of the wave of COVID, there still are challenges to price higher for every airline. We had a good quarter, but that doesn't mean this would continue like this going forward.
And what's the impact for the consumer, Ameya? Because naturally, airlines are going to look at passing this on.
Yes, definitely. So from a consumer perspective, tickets are going to be a little higher, possibly as we get into summer. One of the peakest seasons in Indian aviation is one between April and June, the summer holidays for the country. And as we get into that, there are two ways. One is that the lower buckets which the airlines price typically as part of the revenue management, they've been sold out for most sectors because they went ahead and declared a lot of sales in January and late December. So now you only have fares which are in the higher buckets to sell. And now you have to cover a larger ground because fuel is much higher now than what it was in the past. So from a consumer perspective, do expect some increase in tickets. We are already seeing in the market tickets on certain sectors have almost doubled over a couple of weeks. And this is likely to be at this levels for a while unless airlines deploy capacity.
All right. And, in the past, of course, we've had regulators maintaining certain caps on fares. Do you see that changing? There was a talk of that in the past, in terms of removing some of those caps as things started to get back to normal. What do you feel is going to be the next step on that front?
Yeah, so the fare caps continue to be in the Indian market. Yeah. They are restricted to only D plus 15 days. So if you're flying in the next 15 days, there is a lower and upper cap. But the upper cap is still significant high for, let's say, a middle class family of 4 who wants to travel, and you are locked on the upper bracket of this fare cap. It's still significantly high and a large pinch to the pocket. So from a consumer perspective, the pinch will be felt. So the regulator doesn't tell how many seats you have to sell under which fare bracket. It just gives you a upper and lower cap. Airlines do have that maneuvering ability, and with the kind of oil prices, they'll be forced to push it towards the upper end rather than the lower one.
Ameya, thanks so much for joining us. While things are getting back to normal and a lot of travel on the cards for the summer, clearly it's not going to be a cheap trip. There are real signs that Russia and Ukraine are much closer to a ceasefire than they were ever before. While Ukraine's president, Vladimir Zelensky, said the talks were becoming more realistic, the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, said there was some hope for compromise. This was after Russia's demand that a neutral status for Ukraine was included in the talks. The news immediately calmed various markets. While Brent crude again fell to below $100 a barrel, the rupee recovered around 25 paise against the dollar. Stock markets around the world closed in the green today.
І працювати кожному на своєму місці, кожному, в тому числі нашим представникам, нашій делегації у переговорах з Російською Федерацією. Це важливо. Складно, але важливо, тому що будь-яка війна завершується угодою. Зустрічі тривають. Як мені доповідають, позиції на переговорах звучать вже реалістичніше. Проте ще необхідний час, щоб рішення були в інтересах саме України.
There could be some relief for 2- and 4-wheeler owners. The pressure on PSU oil companies to hike fuel prices has reduced considerably, with crude price abating to around $100 a barrel. Brent crude, which was at $58 just a year ago, shot up to $97 on the eve of the Russia-Ukraine war. The panic which set in with Russian forces entering Ukraine sent prices spiraling to a 14-year high of $130 on the 8th of March. Prices have cooled since, on speculation that crude oil from Russia will not be part of sanctions on the country. Meanwhile, the US last night made it clear that India importing cheap crude oil from Russia is not in violation of the sanctions. Listen in to Jen Psaki, White House spokesperson.
There's been a report yesterday about the possibility that India could take up the Russian offer of discounted crude oil. What would be your message to India or any other country tempted by such an offer?
Well, our message to any country continues to be that obviously abide by the sanctions, but that we have put in place and recommended. I don't believe this would be violating that, but also think about where you want to stand when the history books are written in this moment in time. And support for the Russian leadership is support for an invasion that obviously is having a devastating impact.
Banking legend KV Kamath has also expressed confidence that oil prices will soon cool further. Talking to Business Today exclusively at the BT Most Powerful Women Awards, Kamath said the biggest evidence of this is that the Western central banks still haven't raised interest rates to counter the expected rise in inflation. Listen in.
Now we have an oil shock staring us in the face. The economic survey, sort of reckoned the growth rate given $70 to $75 a barrel oil prices, and we know where we are right now, well over 100, 110. What are your chief concerns given the fact that there has been a huge expenditure push in the budget and you are at NABFID right now? What are the key concerns right now for the economy?
On the oil front, my view is that this should correct because this is otherwise a global problem which I don't think the West wants either. I'll put it in context. Do you think the West can survive with inflation upwards of 5, 7, 6, 7, 8? We have heard Western, I would say, thought leaders say that if your inflation rises, then you better increase your interest rates. Have you seen anybody increase interest rates? Across Europe, it is still near zero. US, it's still below 2%. Inflation is well over 7%. So whereas economic theory, which was pushed down into us, the developing world, where has that gone? So what I'm trying to say is I don't want them to correct themselves, but this cannot last long for them. So this one. But second and third, I would think that we have a long runway as it is. The Honorable PM mentioned that. The Honorable Finance Minister mentioned that. Basically, the 25-year horizon that they're given is absolutely spot on. If you look at what needs to be done. So you have propensity to grow. It is not as if you're struggling to find where you will grow. That's number one. The second is we have another big driver with us, and that is the digital economy. The digital economy, if I look at, say, our neighbors, it's now 35 to 40% of the overall GDP. And this momentum is there for the last 8-10 years. In our context, this is just starting. And again, we have leaders who are funding these sort of initiatives. And the rate at which this will grow is going to be phenomenal. I would believe that if not 25-30%, let's assume it grows to 15-20% in the next 3 to 5 years. That is, if you had, say, 8% aspirational growth, you add another 20-25% there, you're looking at 10%. So you are getting to double-digit growth because of this new driver that is happening.
And here's what else is making news in the corporate world. Ola founder Bhavesh Agrawal announced that Ola is investing in core R&D to create indigenous advanced cell technologies. They plan to invest into large-scale manufacturing of batteries. Ola has applied for the government's $2.4 billion PLI scheme for developing advanced cells. Tata Communications and Formula One announced a multi-year strategic collaboration. With this, Tata Communications returns to the sport of racing as the official broadcast connectivity provider of Formula One. TCS, which controls over 40% of capital markets infrastructure solutions, has won a contract from Singapore Stock Exchange to run trading and settlement platforms for the upcoming SGX Nifty exchange at IFSC, or the International Financial Services Centre in Gandhinagar. Let's take a very quick break. We'll be back with more on the other side.
Rahul Kanwar, 23 years of experience, 5 conflicts covered, unmatched time in war zone.
The first embedded operation in the history of Indian television journalism.
Gaurav Sawant, 28 years of reporting, 8 conflicts covered, unmatched hours in conflict areas.
Actual firing is taking place, the grads are firing.
Shivarur, 19 years of reporting, 5 conflicts covered, unmatched view of international crossfires.
And the ack guns are firing away.
Geeta Mohan, 18 years of reporting, 3 conflicts covered. When the world is at war, there is no compromise on India today.
Should you upgrade to 5G? Are you still wondering if you should get a 5G compatible phone? Well, it'd be a future-proof upgrade, especially with what 5G can really offer. 5G is faster, exactly 20 times faster than 4G. Experts are saying now that it's likely to bring a technological revolution. Unlike its predecessor 4G, which used longer airwaves, 5G uses millimeter waves, which makes it much faster. So say goodbye to annoying buffering when watching your videos. Why is 5G so fast? The millimeter waves are short, which means they have limited range and higher penetration. 5G also carries the promise of making latency disappear, which means that there's going to be less delay between sending and receiving information. So downloading heavy file sizes, of course, will take a few seconds. Can 5G make our cities smart? The idea is that 5G can create smart cities with more connected devices. For instance, increased use of connected or autonomous vehicles will impact lifestyle choices. This also begs the question of enormous amount of data it will generate. So, digital security will be an area of concern, of course, especially since 5G network is more difficult to protect than its predecessors. So, are you ready for the next upgrade?
When it's the world's biggest news story, there's only one gold standard of journalism. This is Ukraine's true danger zone. Up close and fearless in Ukraine's combat zone.
You are watching India Today.
Welcome back. It's the biggest bank scam ever in India, and now the centre has asked the SFIO to expedite the probe into alleged siphoning of funds in the bankrupt ABG shipyard. SFIO has been probing the books of ABG shipyard since 2019. Sources have told Business Today TV that the centre now wants the investigation to be expedited and a report submitted very soon. Let's head across to Karishma for more details.
All right, another agency that is now joining this probe is Serious Fraud Investigations Office. In fact, sources in Finance Ministry also tell me that SFIO has been involved in the probe since 2019. That is when the EY had come out with a report against the wrongdoings in ABG shipyard. But now central government has asked Ministry of Corporate Affairs and SFIO to expedite its report on the misappropriation of funds, the diversion of funds and siphoning. In fact, we're also being told that central government has asked Ministry of Corporate Affairs to immediately take review of top 8 fraud cases and to submit a report soon and to review that. And ABG shipyard is certainly one of the key cases that government is currently looking at. CBI last month had filed a FIR in the 22,000 crore fraud, followed by ED also registering the ECIR last month.
Thanks for that, Karishma. Now, the Indian electronics and pharma industry could be facing further trouble with large parts of China being forced into lockdown due to rising COVID infection cases. If it worsens, experts fear a massive disruption to the global supply chain, hitting production across the world.
Just a little over 3,600 new COVID cases reported on Tuesday. But China is cracking down hard to stop the spread of the virus like never before. According to an estimate, 37 million Chinese residents have been put under varying levels of lockdown. 5 major cities, Changchun, Jilin City, Shenzhen, Dongguan, and Langfang are under prohibitory orders with residents banned from leaving their neighborhoods. Public transport has been suspended and mass testing is underway in all areas. However, what is worrying global businesses the most are the restrictions China has put in place on ports and its industrial hubs of Shenzhen and Shanghai. Shenzhen is a tech and finance hub right next to Hong Kong, with factories building products for the biggest global brands. Foxconn, which builds handsets for Apple, has already shut its plant in the region. Volkswagen and Toyota also announced closure of plants in the affected areas.
If you see Foxconn shut down again, this is going to tighten up the supply for many of our electronic products and generally just the things that we consume here in the US and globally. So any more supply chain issues right now is exactly what we don't need and would create further inflationary pressures and make the Fed's job harder than it already is.
Indian companies are set to feel the pinch. Nearly 70% of the ingredients required to make medicines are imported from China, as are electronic goods and other chemicals. Restrictions on factories and ports will hit Indian manufacturers hard. It's not in jest that China is referred to as the factory of the world. China's ports link factories which manufacture most of the world's smartphones and computers. A month-long slowdown at the port in Shenzhen last year caused a backlog of thousands of containers, sending shockwaves through the global supply chains. Companies are holding their breath, hoping the pandemic spares them the financial pain a third consecutive year. Bureau Report, Business Today TV.
Seems like Holi is adding color to the travel and hospitality sector. With the Holi long weekend around the corner, the travel and hospitality industry is seeing a boom. As the Omicron wave ebbs and people hit the road, the industry is returning to normalcy. Take a look.
Tired and bored after being cooped up at home, Indians are putting on their travel shoes now. As the Omicron wave recedes and Holi festivities commence, hotels and travel companies are seeing a rush of bookings. Ahead of the long weekend of Holi, travel aggregators are seeing at least a 40 to 50% increase in bookings. With summer setting in, hill stations are reporting an unprecedented rise in hotel and travel bookings this weekend. So, where are Indians headed to? Beaches and hill stations are top picks. Within the country, Goa, Kashmir and Himachal are among the locations Indians are heading to.
We have seen a jump of around 40 to 50% in advance air ticket bookings across India for the long weekend of Holi as compared to the last year. Goa, Kashmir, Himachal are the three most favorite routes or the sectors where we have seen demand for this weekend going up tremendously. Apart from that, Dubai, Sri Lanka are anyways catching a lot of attention. But during this weekend, the demand has gone up again by 50%.
A festive long weekend and no COVID wave in sight has spelled good news for the hotel industry too. Hospitality companies like OYO are witnessing a strong increase in bookings in March compared to previous months. Hotels too are seeing a spike in bookings at their properties in leisure destinations for the weekend. An industry which has seen a 2-year-long lull seems to be limping back to normalcy. With international travel commencing soon, many Indians are looking to spend their summer holidays abroad.
This is something that we all were waiting. Not just Ease My Trip, but the entire industry was eagerly waiting for this date to come up. And finally, it is happening. So looking at the numbers that are anyway shooting up, be it Dubai, be it Maldives, be it Sri Lanka, be it US, be it Australia, there is a very high demand. The moment that international thing comes up on 27th March, we see another V-shaped recovery for the entire sector. Absolutely.
With the summer holidays round the corner, travelers are coming back with a vengeance. Will hotels and airlines continue to offer heavy discounts, or will focus now shift to yields? Bureau Report, Business Today TV.
And that's all we have time for on the show today. Thanks so much for watching.